Today is an exciting day, guys. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna test 3 different bicycles on the same trail.
Hi team, I'm Sid.
And I'm Macky.
For the past 6 years, we've been racing mountain bikes professionally.
And living out of our van.
On this channel, we're sharing those adventures with you.
All of them.
So hit subscribe and join the team.
I now have like the full quiver. I've got the full-on XC bike, the Rocket. I've got the mid-travel 29er. It's 130 in the front, 120 in the back. That's the Jet. And then I have the big bike, the Enduro bike. So that's the RIP 9 RDO. I've got the full range and I'm gonna go test them out on Devisadero, which is one of the most technical trails in the Taos area. Devisadero is a 5.7 mile loop with just under 1,300 feet of climbing and descending. It's the most technical trail in the Taos area and generally accepted that counterclockwise is the more difficult direction as the climb is steeper and more technical, so that's the direction I chose to ride it. I've decided that I'm gonna go most suspension to least suspension. That way, when I am most tired, I'm riding the lightest bike. Admittedly, I will also be descending when I'm the most tired on the bike with the least suspension. So it's always a payoff when you're doing an experiment like this, but I'm excited. I'm gonna head out, I'm gonna grab the RIP, and I'm gonna go do a lap of Devisadero. And I've decided that I'm going to do it counterclockwise. Most people do it clockwise. When I was younger, I just decided to do it counterclockwise, and for some reason I really enjoy it that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it counterclockwise. I'll do that on all the bikes so we can compare times and kind of compare how each one felt. So here we go. All right, here we go. Devisadero. Let's see which way's open. Because I definitely do not want it to be open right now. This is the 9er RIP 9 RDO carbon 29er. This one is 140 in the rear and then 160 in the front, at least how we have them set up, with Fox suspension, Fox dropper post, Velo saddle and grips, and then the Shimano XT 12-speed drivetrain and 4-piston XT brakes with 180 mil rotor in the back and 203 rotor in the front. And then running Expedo GFX pedals on this one, which are their beefier ones, and the Stages power meter. Now, this is actually the bike that I have spent the least amount of time on. I've ridden the Rocket and the Jet quite a bit. I've ridden my gravel bike, the RLT, quite a bit. I have only ridden this bike twice. So pretty excited to get out there and see how it feels. This next section, I have never made it up, ever. Not this part. This part I've made it up. It's this next part. Come on. Come on. Nope. Yep. Never made it up that section. And I have spent time sessioning it, trying to make it up. I've still never made it up. My goal today is not necessarily to set records, but to see how these 3 different bikes feel. I actually do have the Strava KOM on this trail, which I set back in, I believe, 2012. So that was a younger, very fit cross-country racing Macky, and I have yet to beat myself on this trail. So that may be one of the things I attempt during quarantine here in Taos. As you can tell from my breathing, it's not exactly an easy climb up here. I have climbed almost 400 feet in 0.7 of a mile. I don't know if you guys caught that. That looked a lot like a running selfie to me. What I'm most impressed by so far with this bike is how well it climbs. It is the heaviest, not surprisingly. It's also a big bike. 160 mil on a 29er is no joke, but it doesn't feel sluggish climbing. It's got such a long wheelbase that some of the tight switchbacks are harder than they would be on a shorter wheelbase bike, but it just feels very confidence inspiring on the climbs. And I think all that supple suspension actually helps with some of these techie climbs because your tire stays planted and you actually get more traction to go up some of these hard rocks. All right, this is one of the more technical parts. Definitely do not have a 100% success rate. Oh shoot. Oh, I was close. That's what this trail is like. We have the keyhole or the snotch coming up, and this is a technical section going down. I don't know anybody who can ride it up. I have never been able to. Basically, you come in and you have to make it up that. And my best guess would be, I don't know, maybe up here and then some trials moves, because I think your cranks are going to be too low to be able to keep pedaling. So yeah, I'm sure there are some trials riders who could pull it off, but I have yet to make it up there. Oh yeah, this thing. This is another one that I don't always make it up. Ooh, but I did that time. Nice. All right, this is the last little push up to the summit. All right, Devisadero Peak. That was 1,160 feet of climbing over 2.4 miles. Yep, that's a real one. Open up the shop. This is where I start getting a little nervous about hikers on the trail, because you can go really fast here, but it's very hard to see. So I'm not going to overdo it. Man, this bike sure eats up bumps nicely. Oh man, yeah, nice. Whew. Thank you. That took me 48 and a half minutes, 1,360 feet of climbing, and 5.7 miles. Well, I knew that the rip was going to be fun on the descent because, I mean, come on, 160 mil, there's no way that's not going to be fun on the descent. What I was the most surprised by was how well it climbed. No, it's not a cross-country bike. You you would not want to bring it to a cross-country race. It weighs too much. There's more suspension than you would need. That being said, it climbed really, really well, surprisingly well. And it felt very confidence inspiring on the way down. It just ate up chatter like nobody's business. You're just going through it like, brrr, and it just super smoothed it out. So that was really fun. Overall, very impressed with that bike. The heaviest, but didn't feel heavy on the climb, so that was really cool. I actually felt like having that much suspension allowed my tires to really like stick into some of the techie stuff and help me get up some sections that otherwise would have been more difficult. I'm gonna hop on the Jet now. This is a 130 in the front, 120 in the back, also 29er. It weighs a little bit less, slightly steeper angles, but let's see how it is. All right, we are on bike number 2, lap number 2. This is the Niner Jet 9 RDO. So it's a carbon 29er with 120 mil of suspension in the back, 130 in the front. I'm running Shimano XTR 12-speed drivetrain and 4-piston brakes, Fox suspension and dropper post, Velo saddle and grips, Speedo Baldwin pedals, and a Stages power meter. I've spent the most time on this bike, so it'll be interesting how it feels compared to the Rip. I'll tell you right now, it feels different already. My legs are tired. All right, section I've never made it up. Let's see. All right, come on, Macky. Nope, same place. I think that took me just about the same amount of time to get up here. The first thing that I've noticed though is with this bike in the firm mode on the shock, it definitely pedals more efficiently. And I think part of that is it's a smaller shock, a more XC shock, and the firm mode or the pro pedal is definitely more significant. So I'm definitely feeling like my power is being transferred into forward momentum more, but I do lose a little bit of the suppleness that I got with the Rip on some of these like techie rock sections that I think provided some traction. Well, the switchbacks are definitely easier on this bike because it's got a shorter wheelbase. That is noticeable. Oh, come on, baby. Come on. Oh, man, same place as last time. Again. At least I'm consistent. The last little push to the top. And then we start descending. Time to open up the old suspension. Set up wide, get inside. Better, better. Well, this bike has been handling the rough descents nicely, but it definitely not as smooth as the Rip, which I wouldn't expect it to be, but definitely getting a little bit chattered, a little bit more chattered on the descent, but it does feel more efficient on the climbs. Although on the climbs with the shock open, the difference between open and firm is more significant, which makes me think that the firm is just, you know, you have more of a platform on this bike.
All right, according to my GPS, that was 49 minutes, which is basically the same as the first lap, which surprises me because I would have thought that the lighter weight and the more efficient pedaling of the Jet would have made it faster. But I'm wondering if like it was so technical that the Rip just like ate up stuff and that allowed me to go a little faster on the descent and on the rough spots. And there's always a fatigue aspect. I obviously was more tired on the second lap. So we'll see if that trend continues, if the better pedaling and lighter weight of the Rocket is neutralized by the technical aspect. So I'm gonna bust that bike out, finish eating a snack, and do the final lap.
Lap 3, bike 3, Niner Rocket 9 RDO. Super lightweight carbon cross-country race bike. It's 90 millimeters of travel in the back, 100 in the front, so it's actually basically their RS build on their website. We've got a Fox step cast fork here, which makes that even lighter. It's a 32, and then the Fox transfer post, and then running a Shimano XTR 12-speed drivetrain, super lightweight. And then Shimano XTR brakes. These are the 2 pistons. So once again, super lightweight, and then 160mm rotors front and rear. A Velo saddle and Velo grips. I'm running a dual-sided Stages power meter, so I have a power meter on this side, as well as a power meter on this side. And then running the Expedo CXR pedals, which are their super duper lightweight cross-country race pedals. You know, I don't think I've ever done 3 laps at the Devisadero in a day. Yeah, that's a new one for me. Anyway, I am on the Rocket, which is a 90 in the back, 100 in the front millimeter of travel. And this is definitely an XC race bike. It's light, not much suspension, steep angles, it climbs ridiculously well, so it will definitely be a different experience than the previous 2. And part of the reason I chose to do this bike last, ride this bike last, was because I knew I was going to be tired and I wanted to suffer the least amount. And since this bike climbs so well, I figured I'd save it for last. Admittedly, that is going to make the times a little bit weird. Like if my goal here were to figure out which was fastest, I would do this on 3 different days. I would do, you know, I'd make sure I was rested for each one, do a warm-up for each one. But what I'm more interested in is just how each bike feels on this trail. So the time will be interesting, but it's by no means the an objective measure of which of these bikes is best suited to this trail. Yep, fatigue definitely kicking in. I made it up that on both of my previous laps, but not this time. It's also worth acknowledging the different tires that I'm on. On the Rip, I was on Martellos, which are very sticky, beefy, lots of tread. Roll surprisingly well, but they're definitely heavier enduro style tires. On the Jet, I was on the Agaro front and rear, which is sort of a trail tire. It's got some good traction, good cornering knobs, but rolls fairly well, is not as beefy as the Martello. And then on this bike, I'm on Barzo's front and rear. So they don't, I mean, they have good traction. They climb well, they roll well. They aren't quite as sticky, don't have quite as much traction as the previous two. All right, let's see what I can do on this section. Nope, same spot. You know, they say that's the definition of insanity. Trying the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So, judging by that definition, I am insane. It is immediately apparent that this bike pedals more efficiently than the other two. With the shock and firm mode, feels like a hardtail. I'm pretty much getting no movement in the rear, maybe a tiny bit when I go over like a rock or something, but it feels pretty close to locked out. So very good for power transfer, possibly not as good for technical stuff. All right, let's see how this section goes. Yep, sure climbs up nice. Sure climbs nice. Whoa. All right, interesting note. This bike has an even shorter wheelbase than the Jet, and you notice it in the switchbacks, which is really nice. Goes around them a lot more easily. But I'm also noticing it on like rock step-ups, where you have less time after getting your front wheel up to lift your rear wheel up. And that's a little hard because your timing has to be faster. But the benefit is that there's less chance of hitting your crank on the rock as you're stepping up it. So benefits and downsides to the shorter wheelbase. I think I'd gotten used to a slightly longer wheelbase right back there, and my timing was just off. It's like my front wheel hit a root at exactly the same time that my rear wheel hit a rock, and that hadn't happened on the other bikes, and it screwed me up. So just interesting to see what sections are easier, better, more fun, faster on certain bikes compared to the other bikes. All right, back to this thing. Let's see if I can do any better on this bike. Nope, guess not. Another thing I've noticed is it is easier to get the front wheel up on this bike. And I think that's a combo of a steeper head tube angle, which pulls the wheel a little closer, and also just smaller fork, which means that it weighs less. So the whole front end, wheel, fork, tire, are all lighter on this bike, which makes getting the front end up easier, which is nice for putting it up on the rocks. Okay, hopefully I can make it up this thing on this bike since I made it up on the other two. Yep, it felt a little harder, but that's probably because my legs are tired of doing big efforts to get up that rock. Definitely fatiguing. I can tell because my steering is getting sloppy, which on this trail is not what you want. You have to be very precise about where you put your wheels. All right, climbing up to the top. Oh man, am I happy to see the top. Lap number 3. Open shock. Now, this descent is where I'm assuming this bike will fare the worst, because it felt pretty darn good on the climb. But guess we'll find out. All right, one thing that's worth noting is this bike has narrower handlebars, a shorter reach, and it has 2-piston brakes where the other bikes have 4-piston brakes, and it's got smaller rotors. So it is not built to deal with as aggressive or high-speed descending as the other 2 bikes are. That being said, it feels surprisingly good. Like, I definitely noticed the difference in braking power, and it feels a little weird not having as wide of bars, but it really feels pretty plush and pretty smooth over this stuff. Admittedly, this is not the rough stuff, but I'm pleased. All right, gonna make it up. Right. All right, the cornering traction of these tires, definitely not as good, which is not surprising because the cornering knobs aren't as big, but these corners are so loose that it's pretty noticeable, and I definitely had a washout that I barely caught myself on right at the beginning, so I've started having a more aggressive position and, you know, really focusing on my cornering form to make up for the less aggressive cornering knobs.
That was lap number 3. I was definitely tired on that 3rd one. The time was 50 minutes and I had less stopping time than the previous 2. I suspect a lot of that was just being tired after doing 2 previous laps. What's interesting, and this could have been affected by it being my 3rd lap, was that I felt like I had to work a lot harder on the Rocket, and that was both up and down. So despite being lighter and pedaling more efficiently, it just felt like more work. And partially that's because I'm tired, but I think just having less suspension means that you do have to work harder. You know, on any chattery stuff, you're standing up more, you're off the bike more, you can't kind of sit on the bike and let the suspension do the work for you. So I guess the question is which is the right bike or best bike for this trail? And I'm gonna use our coach Mike's favorite response to hard questions, which is, it depends. So if I were just coming up here to ride for fun, just to like do a lap of Devis, definitely do the rip. I was really surprised by how well it pedaled, and I didn't feel like I was like slugging my way up the hill. I actually felt like I was like, okay, yeah, this pedals really well. And it was an absolute blast on the descent. If I were going for pure speed, I'm not sure. That's a hard one. Like, part of me says, oh, definitely take the cross-country bike because best pedaling, fastest. But I'm not sure it actually was the fastest. I think the Jet might have been faster, even though it weighs more, because it pedals so well, but descends so well. So it's an interesting balance of trying to figure out like which would be the fastest. And since one of the things I'm probably gonna try during this quarantine time is breaking my previous record on this trail, I will let you guys know. So make sure you're subscribed, head over and check out that video right there. We'll see you there in just a second. And in the meantime, don't forget to be more awesome.